Welcome to Don't Chuck It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we are joined by a guest, one of my colleagues and good friends, Mya Andersen. Mya, welcome to the Don't Chuck It Up podcast.
Hello. Thank you for the invite. I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here. We've been chatting for several years now, and I have been poking and prodding at you to be on a podcast with me. So here we are. I finally got my podcast up and running, and I said, I got to have you on. And thanks to you also for spreading the news to all of your friends about my podcast, because I've had all of your friends on my show already.
Okay, did you hear from Lorraine Connell?
Not yet. No, but I've had Annie and I've had Andrea and we've got some other. I've got Anne joining us from Colleges That Changes Lives in a future episode. So thanks to you, Mya, I'm getting this A list of guests coming on my show, and I'm super excited to have all of you join me.
Chuck, I think that this is why a friend of mine once said to me, the thing about you is you're relationship driven. And I am. So like if you're gonna do something, like let's bring everybody on.
Absolutely. And I'm also relationship driven and I love connecting people. And I especially love connecting other experts to my listeners so that my students and families can hear from other great minds. So it's not just all, hey, Chuck said this, it's also other people have said this as well. So before we dive into all of your amazing advice, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, Mya?
So I am an academic life coach. I contract with College Connectors. So Chuck and I are colleagues through College Connectors. I get referrals from people like Chuck for students for coaching through the first year of college. And then I have my own coaching practice where I do coaching through the first year of college, and then other coaching at any point in time in college. If a student is wanting to transfer or if a student is coming up on the tail end of their college career and realizing that they haven't really figured out what to do with their major or what next steps look like or that sort of thing. So I am there for the first, middle, and last.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit more because when you say coaching, we're not talking about you're out on the pitching mound helping them throw the first pitch or how to launch the best free throw from half court. Talk to me about what do you mean when you talk about coaching students through college?
So uh, honestly, I would say it is kind of like throwing out the first pitch or improving your jump shot or your rebound. It is the process of mastering the college journey. That's really what it is. And so part how that happens is practice.
Mhm.
We students spend their K through 12 years um, being taught but not really learning. And so then when they get to college, they shift from being taught to learning and they're not ready. And so this is where coaching is relevant, is because it's that practice makes perfect. And so ideally, I start working with you the summer before you go to college, and we talk about what it's going to look like. And we do exercises where we're practicing that experience. Um, it's not going to be perfect, but the goal is that you go to college with a sense of confidence and also that I've been here before because I've talked through it. And Mya has played out scenarios. Mya has prepared me for this scenario could look like. Um, Mya has helped me understand that I have to learn a new language, that my professors are not trained as professional teachers. They are trained as professional researchers. And so they are going to present the subject matter through the eyes of their research. Whereas your teachers have been presenting the subject matter to teach it to you. And you necessarily have not been learning, you have just been taught. And so there's all of these shifts. You are potentially sharing a space with somebody for the first time in your life. And you haven't had to have those interpersonal relationships with the people that you grew up with in the same home as the people you live with. It's very different. And it's really easy to have this perception of my roommates and I are going to get along great because we've been talking and FaceTiming and it's been fantastic. And then there's the first night out and things happen and nobody really wants to talk about it. And so this is where the coaching piece comes in. With my students, I actually have created a Google form for them where they can send it to their roommates, their future roommates, and it breaks the ice. It takes the awkward conversations out, so that you don't have to say, hey, overnight guest, this is what I need it to look like. Or I'm a clean person and if the trash is overflowing, I can't study. I don't feel good at home. Like, so coaching, it really is that, like, let's walk you through what it looks like. And then we're going to practice it. And then when you get there, it's I've been here before.
Right. And for full disclosure to those listening, I have also done some academic success coaching with students, and I did some of this work when I was on the college level, and I've also done it independently as well. And what this really is helpful for is especially for the oldest kid going off to college or students whose parents did not go to college, because I think a lot of students and families go, okay, our kid got admitted, we've paid the enrollment deposit, that's it, right? And they don't understand the amount of paperwork that needs to happen. So Mya can help students and families navigate, how do you do all the health forms? How do you do the residence life paperwork? What do you do with FERPA? And how does that play out to your student's role? A lot of times students have been relying on their parents or on their teachers to remind them about homework and assignments and those types of things. College is a 24/7 experience versus high school, which is very transactional. You go there, you do it for a few hours, and then you go home. And many of our young people, I won't single out the boys entirely, but many of our young people could use some extra guidance as to how do I navigate these situations. So then the young person, the teenager, doesn't have to say, "Mom, Dad, I got this," even though they really don't, and they're lost. And it's a big shift whether they're going to college right down the road from where they've grown up or on the other side of the country. We're trying to get, as academic success coaches, we're trying to get students to become independent young adults and navigate their crap on their own and not fail and flounder. Because as kids come home for Thanksgiving, students are struggling and they don't want to admit it to their parents that they're struggling, but a lot of them are struggling. So an academic success coach is someone that can help navigate not only the academic world, but also the social world to make sure that your student has the support that they need. So you, as parents listening, don't have to constantly check in on your child every day and say, "Are you alive? Are you okay? Did you do your homework?" All those great types of things. So yeah, I guess I'm wondering, what when you said that parents should be talking to you, the summer before they go off to college, is that the best time, or when should really parents and students engage with you as a success coach?
So ideally, honestly, that summer before college is there. It's it's a it's chaotic, but it really is the best time. It's not, any time before is really tough because students, your last year of high school, you are very engaged in the high school piece of your life. And it is, as much as you are future thinking, it is hard to be future doing. And
Mhm.
so we could talk through all of the components of what it's going to look like, but it's not going to stick because you're still in the present doing, and that future doing is just, it's not honestly, young adults, adolescents, they don't have the cognitive ability to make that shift until they have had an end point, that there has been a stop point. I've graduated. Now I'm moving to the next thing. So, really, summer is the best time to start. The only thing I will say, and I'm going to circle back really quickly to what you were saying about forms and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Um, Chuck, you would not believe the number of students that I help log into their campus email and read their emails for the first time from their campus. So the only
That doesn't
advantage,
surprise me. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
really, I will say, like, one of my favorite things is when they log in and there's this like light bulb moment of like, oh, oh, well, that's where all of this is. And so, yes, there's at least one student who is completely shocked that the institution has not continued to send emails to their personal email address after they've been admitted, made their decision, and everything else. So, really, the only advantage of having me starting to work with you before you graduate is that you're not going to start reading those emails after you've graduated. You're going to start reading those emails before. But in all honesty, they're just cognitively, young adults are not ready. They're not ready to make that shift until the graduation part has happened. And then you do the celebration and then you do all the things. And then there is the, okay, we're doing college. And there's a component of summer readiness that is the, before you go to orientation, let's talk through what it's going to look like and let's have some good questions ready. And here, like, let's talk about maybe some spots on campus you want to make sure you see and that sort of thing. But
Mhm.
then there's also the other part, which is let's talk about priority management. Let's, like, you've heard time management your whole life. This is what's been, you've been talked at time management, time management, time management. You haven't mastered it because you actually don't really know what you're managing. And
Right.
so the shift becomes priority management. And so over the summer, that's one of the things that I do. And that's the non-academic, that's the life part where let's learn the art of um what am I want to say? Ranking your priorities. Like, let's understand how to rank priorities, and then let's understand on time, the amount of time each thing will take, and then start creating those types of schedules and priority rankings and that sort of thing before you go to college. So that, once again, this is the coaching part. I've been there, I've practiced, I'm ready.
Yeah. So you mean picking your fall classes probably should be a higher priority than what your dorm room colors should be when you do your decorating?
Yes, picking your fall classes should be your priority. And here is a funny little thing. So, Chuck, you and I come from the generation of you get what you get when it comes to your schedule, right?
Right.
And thankfully, one thing higher education has evolved with is not everybody wants to go to 8 o'clock classes. And so we're not going to schedule a ton of 8 o'clock classes. We're not doing that for first years. They're not going to go to class. And so that era of like, you're going to have to go to class at 8 in the morning has started to actually go away. And really, what is probably really surprising for a lot of families is how late in the day and evening that students are going to have their classes. This is
Yes.
that one of those significant shifts. But also, when you register for classes, it's not a done deal. Like, the student can come back and talk to me, and we can have a conversation about, okay, you're taking your science class in the middle of the day. Is it hard to stay engaged with science at 1 in the afternoon? If it is, then let's make some shifts. And so it's that also, nothing is an absolute, and learning that you are now in the position to start shifting those things around, because in high school it is an absolute. You get your schedule, that's how you do it. In
And it's
college,
just Well, and
Go
it's the
ahead.
same schedule every day, which is a big shift for a lot of students. They're going, right now I have students that have A days and B days where they have the same schedule on the A day and the same schedule on the B day. In college, I was a double major, very involved. I don't think I had 2 days ever that were exactly the same because of appointments, meetings, tutorings, study sessions, what have you. And I think the other thing that this really helps is also thinking through all the bits and pieces of, oh, I have to get my textbooks. I had a student that didn't understand that they had to go and actually either order the textbooks online or physically go to a textbook bookstore, because in high school it was a module that got downloaded onto your laptop or the teacher provided you with the book. I want to go back to the timing thing because I think you make a great point that starting it after kind of the May 1st college decision deadline after high school graduation. But what about students that do get through that first semester? They go, yep, I'm going to be fine. And then, the pasta doesn't stick to the wall and they come home after first semester and they're really struggling. Is that an opportunity that a parent or a student could reach out to you for help as well?
Absolutely. And in situations like that, the the approach is going to be different. It's the another piece of coaching is you meet the student where they are. Just like if you were coaching somebody in any other activity, whether it would be voice lessons or a sport, you're not going to ask them to be at peak performance the first time they do it. And so it's going to look different because for students like that I am starting with midstream, if you will, there's going to be a period of unlearning.
Yes.
There's going to be a period of unlearning. There's going to be a period of tell me how you did it. And then, hey, let's do some exercises and we're going to work through some tools and we're going to use some strategies and unlearn how you've done it because you have potentially made it work. It hasn't been great, but you made it work. Let's unlearn that and start instituting the things that are going to make it less chaotic, a little easier, less scary. And sometimes it's something as simple as here, I have this fantastic tool that is going to help you with note taking.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, you potentially have been taking notes how you took them in high school, or if your
Or
professor
haven't
used
taken or haven't taken notes at all, let's be real.
yes,
You
or
know,
if your professor is does their lectures with PowerPoints or Google Slides, you've been frantically writing it down and not listening.
yep.
So understanding why note taking is relevant, understanding that note taking is going to look different based on how the information is presented and what information it is, and then that notes you don't take notes to just let them go and die. That there is a purpose to them, and then
What?
that goes back to priority management. Like this is this kind of stuff that circles back. Like schedule time in your days to recap your notes.
Yep.
To if rewriting them is what you need to do, use that. If you need to use a reverse classroom strategy and talk through them and record yourself and then watch yourself talk it out and then rewrite it, like use these different types of strategies to help you perfect a process that you have been hobbling through.
And what this all really falls under is the umbrella of what I would call executive functioning type skills, which are
So much.
skills that, regardless of your major or the type of college that you go to, these are skills that move you from being a teenager and reliant on adults to help you navigate this stuff to being very self-sufficient and self-reliant. And so we've talked about getting ready for college and doing all the academic type coaching. What are some other areas that you help students navigate through that are maybe not as much academic?
So some other things that I help them with is I will help them with things on like information retention. So, and that isn't always academic. That can be you have met a ton of new people. Why does it matter? using those people that you are meeting on campus for the resources that you may need now or you may need later. Something that students don't realize is that your freshman seminar, your first semester,
First year
first
studies. Yeah.
quarter, whatever that class is, the person who's teaching that class very rarely is assigned the class. The person who's teaching that class is teaching it because they have chose to teach it, and they tend to be a lighthouse. They tend to be somebody that can be a really good, I don't know, and they will offer you insights and they will offer you resources. And so there is that component of, it looks academic because they are the professor of the
Right.
class, but it's not academic because they are a person just like you are. And they're teaching that class because they get that it's hard. There's a high learning curve. And
Yeah.
so make that person your friend.
Absolutely. And I will say not all of them work out. I had two different first year studies professors when I was in college. One absolutely hated me. And
This is reasonable.
she made it abundantly clear that was fine. And I got a lower grade in that class and actually got put on academic probation because of that lower grade. That was a great way to start my first term. And I
Right.
called my mother and I said, "There's no way." And we didn't have academic success coaches back then, but my mother basically served as one because she was in education and she was a teacher. And so she basically helped me think through, okay, well, this is what I did when I was in college. And so I think academic success coaches can really fill in for students that may not have that same person to turn to, or their parents didn't go to the college that they're at or went to a very drastically different college. I'm also wondering, I work with a lot of both athletes and students with learning challenges. Those are two big groups that I tend to work with quite often. What could you, as an academic success coach, provide for someone with a learning challenge or for an athlete? What would you be talking about with them?
So we'll start with the athletes. I actually, so I, prior to doing this independently, was on campuses.
Mhm.
So I have worked with student athletes in my time on campuses. And something that athletes are consistently surprised about are usually two things. One, they did not realize how much of their time is already committed for them. They don't get to call the shots on that.
Very true.
Two, their professors don't know, and their professors potentially don't care. And so, with if they played a sport in high school, their teachers all knew they were going to leave for an away game, right?
Yep.
Your professor is not committing that to memory.
No.
That is where you, as a collegiate athlete, introduce yourself to your professor. Communication is so critical. And it doesn't mean you go in and see them every time. Like, this is what email is for, people.
Right.
Communicate, learn the art of communicating via email. Something that is really fantastic for this type of thing is mastering chat GPT to help you with help with writing those emails so there isn't that awkwardness, and getting the information you need to know and the information you need to convey. So with student athletes, it's the, I am used to having a practice schedule and I'm
Mhm.
used to having a competition schedule. What they are not potentially familiar with is that there's a bunch of other things related to their sport that they are expected to spend time with. And so there's that. The time part usually surprises them, and the fact that their professors are like, I don't know why you weren't in class, and I'm probably not really concerned. That's something that you like, you can't phone it in. You need to be communicating
Right.
about that with me. So that's with athletes. Then students with learning differences. So I actually have just completed a certification in working with adolescents with learning and attention differences, or there's a word I'm leaving out, but And so, and what the course was really that taking executive functioning and really just bumping it up to its highest. Ironically enough, what I have been doing with students for years is executive functioning.
Yep.
Students did not have executive functioning 20 years ago. I know this may shock everybody, but executive functioning is not new. It's just that we finally have put a label on it. So there's that component. There is a lot of executive functioning stuff that I do with my students. But then also there is the other component. If you go to college with a learning difference, the accessibility office is not going to reach out to you. They're not going to make sure you've scheduled exams. They're not going to make sure you're getting that additional time. They're not going to make sure you're getting resources. They're not going to make sure if you have dyslexia that your textbooks that are probably digital, that you can get them in print copy, or that you have a screen reader for digital textbooks so that you can read them. These
Yep.
are the things that aren't happening for students that have learning differences. And so this is where, before you get to college, I can walk you through what the accessibility services office is going to do. Walk you through, let's contact that person. Let's say who you are. I have an email that is a template for students to email their professors and tell them in advance before their first day of class. But then also, I am the person who says, it's really easy to think I'm not going to use this anymore. I'm in college now. I don't need that extra time. I don't need that extra resource. You are very wrong. You need it now more than ever. And also in high school, people potentially noticed, right? There's that other part. Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
different. Guess what? In college, nobody cares.
Well,
Nobody notices and nobody cares.
and in
Use,
many colleges, it could be as much as a quarter to a third of the student body has some type of an accommodation already for them. So and
yes,
there's a handful of colleges out there, as someone who just came and toured one, that is nearly 100% of the students have a documented learning challenge. And I think that is a huge shift. As someone who grew up and still has a significant learning challenge and disability to make it hard for learning, I did feel singled out in high school. And I was like, I had to go to the special room and take my
yes.
exam in a special manner and stuff like that. And having worked on the side now of staff at colleges in a previous life, yes, those can still exist, but you're going to a study center where there are 50 to 100 other students that are utilizing that same resource. One thing that I have to push with high school students, they may not have used any accommodations in high school because high school, let's be fair, was easy enough that they didn't need to use them. And they're like, oh, I've had this. I got diagnosed with this back in, eighth grade or whatever. I've never used this accommodation. I said, well, you need to march yourself into the accommodations or disability services office and talk about how that looks in college, because you're right, Maya. This is going to be something that not only do you need, but it's going to help level the playing field, because the information, you're not drinking from a tiny little faucet like in high school. You're drinking from a freaking fire hose when you're in college, and you need to digest a lot of information really quickly. A lot more reading, a lot more writing. The exams are much more than, check true or false. It's a lot more going on.
It is a lot more. And honestly, the beauty of being very honest about your learning difference, or what makes you doesn't make you look like the other student next to you, is
Right.
that you use it. Like, it's good for your RA to know, it's good for your roommates to know, it's good for people to know, hey, I'm a little neurospicy, but this is my superpower. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
for
really the
sure.
truth,
For
right? Like,
sure.
let's not make it like in high school, like you said, like you were singled out. Well, you know what? In college, what if instead of being singled out mentally, you shifted to, wait a minute, I actually have an advantage that my peers don't have because I process information differently.
Yep.
Or because physically I don't move at the same pace as them. And so I see the world from a different perspective.
Mm.
Those kinds of things college gives you the opportunity to do it differently.
Absolutely.
However, level the playing field. Like you said, Chuck, this is so important. Level the playing field everywhere you can. Everywhere you have an opportunity, level the playing field.
And that's a perception change for a lot of students because they go, oh, I'm getting this technology. For example, a student with significant dyslexia is using technology like readers or speech to
Yes.
write text or write to speech text. Um, and I think they feel that, oh, I'm getting to use stuff that my other friends can't. I'm like, no, your friends that don't have learning challenges can use that also. This is just making sure that because of your learning challenge, you should have access to this and have availability to this. And you do. In high school, the teachers and your parents were more likely to handhold you through that process. Once you are over the age of 18 and you are outside of the care of your parents' home, it is now your responsibility as a young adult to step up and say, I have this challenge or I have this learning difference and I need stuff to be done a different way. And as someone who has had to advocate for myself because I am, at least 50% deaf, probably more, I've had to step up and do that. And most people go, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about you. Oh, yeah, we can totally do this in a different way. I had faculty that ended up changing their teaching style. So, for example, there was one professor that would stare at the board and talk at the board. So I couldn't see, a
Oh,
lot of my understanding of verbal speech is through lip reading. And I'm like, she was just writing on the board. So what she did is she got those, we didn't have the fancy technology that they have nowadays that they could do it
yes.
on the computer, but they had the old projection screen where she was writing on the plastic that we had when
Yes.
we were kids and it was projecting on behind her. And she
Yes.
said, I feel more engaged with my whole class now. I can see kids' reactions. I know when a kid looks confused. Instead of turning around and only seeing, 5 seconds of them, I'm now looking at my class. And I was like, I changed a professor. I'm pretty cool. And the professor was very thankful for it. Um, but the hard part is that I think what's critical about your job is you're helping students and parents prepare for what they don't know. College has
Yes.
changed a lot from when parents were in college. And
It's
there's a
changed so
perception,
much.
I know, but there's a perception that it hasn't. Students have only really experienced college life through what they've seen in movies and YouTube videos, which PS, they rarely go to class and they rarely do homework in college movies. So I had one student that said, I only take like one or two classes each semester, right? And I was like, why do you say
But
that? Well, that's what I've seen on the movies. I said, well, that's a movie. That's not reality. So I think your job is critical to help students and families understand what they don't know. This is a major investment. They are spending a lot of money on college. Why not get it right and have some help along the way rather than be on the struggle bus the whole time? That's my thought.
so, Chuck, it's funny that you're talking about the investment part because something that I have had numerous conversations with, not necessarily with my students and their families, but with people who say, like, well, why would I hire? Like, why do we need to hire somebody extra? Or why can't they figure it out on their own? Or that sort of thing. Um, I have started the conversation, or I've changed the conversation from um, college is expensive to college is a big ticket item. And if
Mm-hmm.
you are not approaching it and treating it like a big ticket purchase, you're not getting your money's worth. And that also is like, this is why coaching is relevant because your money's worth means that you are using every piece of what your campus offers
Yes.
over the course of your college career. That means that you know where career services is by the end of your third semester, like that first semester of your second year, the first quarter of your second year, you are in thick with career services. You are doing things relevant to your degree and you are getting real life know how and expertise related to your degree. This is a big ticket purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Treat it accordingly. Nobody buys a luxury vehicle to never take it over 35 miles an hour. Like, I mean, this is just like
Or never
use
take
it.
it in for service. Like you wouldn't just drive it into the ground. Like if you just bought your, if you're, for those of you parents out there that are having a midlife crisis and you're buying your midlife crisis car, make sure you're taking into the appropriate service agency
Yes.
or location. I think some parents think though that, well, there are staff at the colleges that are available to do this. Now, I will say to those parents, yes, there are some colleges, some and few and far between, that have success coaches and staff available. But I will tell you that that is probably less than 5% of the nation's colleges that have something like that on campus. The majority of our American college students are going to medium to large institutions. And there is not the staffing capability to provide all of the safety nets that someone like Mya can provide for students and families to navigate, especially at a medium or a large college. Most of my students end up going to either a medium or a large, and it's a lot of self-navigating, so you can do that. So I know we could talk about this for hours, but I want to dive in and go, are there two or three pieces of advice that you wish students and parents could know right now? What are the things that if you could get on the soapbox and preach from the highest mountain so that every student and family could hear you, what would you want them to know?
Um, so this is going to this is going to my first answer is going to be a little roundabout, and here's why. So Chuck, I no, this is a great surprise. So Chuck, I um my plan was to go to law school. My plan was to write environmental policy. I was an environmental studies and public policy major. In a million years, I never thought that I would never graduate from college, which is basically what I get to do. And but then I became
Clarify
involved.
that you graduated from college, but now
Yes,
because
did you?
you
Yeah,
work
yeah.
with college students, you feel like you have never graduated. I just want to clarify
Yes,
that for the
thank you.
listeners.
Yes, thank you.
You,
It's a good point. Thank you for clarifying. So, but as a student, like did work on campus in student life. I did work in orientation. I did student and freshman seminars. I did work and so on and so forth. And I was a first generation college student. So I thought I was the only one that didn't know what I was doing. Guess what?
interesting.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
That's facts. That's totally facts.
The reason this career this career is where the reason I left behind the idea of law school and environmental policy and that sort of thing is because I realized, like, wait a minute, nobody else knew. I was like, I just was the only person in the room that said, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And so, wouldn't it be fantastic if there was somebody who was saying, none of us know what we're doing, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is that you ask. What matters is that you say, hey, actually, this is my first rodeo. This actually is my first rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched the shows and I have friends that have told me and so on. Like TikTok has told me this and so on and so forth. But actually, this is my first rodeo. So the first thing would be nobody knows what they're doing. It's everyone's first rodeo. It does not matter if you're the fifth kid in a household to go to college, it's everyone's first rodeo. And it's okay. You do not have to be the best at everything by the end of your first semester. It's okay if you're not. It's okay if you're kind of mediocre. Like mediocre is okay for like you shouldn't be mediocre when you graduate, but it's okay to be mediocre the first semester. So that would be the first one. The second one is parents. I appreciate that your college experience was what it was, but you are raising a Gen Z child. And Gen Z looks nothing like us Gen Xers or older millennials. Okay. It looks nothing like it. And your student, if you are trying to relate to your student's college experience through the lens of your own, everyone is going to be frustrated. Your student is not going to come to you and ask for help. Your student is not going to ask anyone on their campus for help. Gen Z does not self-advocate. You can teach them it all day and all day long. They're going to forget it, and it's
Mhm.
not going to happen. So don't expect your students' college experience to be how yours was through the lens of your own experience. It's just not going to look like that. And then probably third is it's a big ticket item. You're purchasing a big ticket item. It's okay to hire someone to help your kid get through the college journey, the
Yep.
college experience. Like it's okay to do that. If you like admissions is a mystery, right? And admissions
Oh,
is challenging,
it's not a mystery if they talk to me, because that's my
right?
job, is to make admissions not a challenging or not a mystery. So that's why I exist. But why you exist is to complete the picture. So
Exactly. Like admissions, like it's people hire help for admissions all the time, right? Well,
yep,
admissions is not the end of the story. Like
right.
that's just actually like the forward of the book. Like we haven't even gotten into the first chapter. Like getting through that first year is the first chapter. And so as a parent, wouldn't it be fantastic to be able to enjoy your kids' college experience as their parent and not as their everything else, the taskmaster, the this, the that. Like I have a family who their student is finishing the first semester of their second year. Their first year of college was okay. They loved the college. They did not love their academic experience.
Hmm.
And the this semester was brutal. And the parent got to the point of, I feel like every conversation has to be about how you're doing in college and not about how you are as a person. And the other day, this parent said to me, literally, this is the best money we've ever spent. Do you know how nice Thanksgiving was? Like, Thanksgiving was fantastic because we didn't
Right.
have to say, what are you doing?
Yeah, and students build self-confidence, self-direction, those executive functioning skills, as we've
All
talked
of
before.
that.
As I said, well, as you mentioned, a lot of families hire someone like me, a college counselor, that helps them navigate the admissions process, because it is different language, different deadlines, weird stuff, and a lot to juggle. And I get that. But parents and students are still living in the same space typically when they are hiring me. When I encourage my students and families to kind of pass the baton on to someone like you, now you are dealing with distance. Students are not typically living at home, they're living at the college, sometimes close, sometimes far away. And this is why I say someone like Mya, as an academic success coach, can really help calm parents down of like, oh, what's going on, what's happening, what am I supposed to be doing, how the class is going. And students end up being able to have better conversations with their parents because they're more confident in what they're doing in college. And I think it's a great investment because we know the average graduation rate right now is 5, almost 6 years for many students. Kids with neurodiversity or for learning differences can be as much as 7 years if they don't have the proper coaching and support to navigate all of those steps. So, just to reiterate, Mya is a great person to engage if you're wondering, how do I help my kid become successful, not only academically, but socially, and making sure that your investment in their college future is well utilized. Before we wrap stuff up, Mya, I'd love to hear a little bit about your educational journey. So, what was high school like for you? And then, what was your journey after high school?
I high school experience. So I grew up in rural Northern California near Lake Tahoe. I was a first generation college student. Neither of my parents went to college. In fact, one of my parents by choice has their GED. And so there wasn't a focus on education. I knew I wanted to go to college. I had no idea how. I genuinely had no idea how. And so I actually did not go to college directly out of high school. Um, I moved to a college town where friends of mine from high school went. And I thought if I just did the same thing they did, that it would it would all come together. It doesn't. That's
I've
not
heard
how it
that
works.
story. Yep, I've heard
Mhm.
that story before.
It doesn't work like that. And so I had the opportunity to work for a California legislator. I worked for the the California State Assembly for a few years, and then thankfully was surrounded by mentors. And that I think is probably one of the things that drove me also towards this career path. Who said to me, like, go to college, like, go do the thing. And so I went to college and I went to the University of Oregon. I loved it. It was a fantastic experience. And it's not because exclusively because of football or basketball or any of those things. It's because truly I had an advantage over my peers. And that was that I knew why I was in college. Like, I knew that I was in college for my own reasons, not because it was the next step in life. And so it was a very different experience for me. But as I said before, the thing I learned is that even if you were the third generation going to college, you had no more an idea of how to do college than me as a first gen. Like, nobody knows what they're doing. Like, we were all
Yep.
like fresh. I mean, we were all like, why are we here together? So went to the University of Oregon. Like I said, really thought that I was going to do environmental policy. That was the grand plan. By the time my senior year rolled around in college, my last year of college, I realized actually, I think I should be the advocate I never had. I should be the
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
like who said, hey, it's okay that nobody knows what they're doing. And so I began a career in higher ed and worked on campuses up until the middle of 2020.
So, can you share some of the places that you've worked at?
Okay, so I worked at the University of Oregon. I worked in admissions and in student life there. Um, and then I worked at UC San Diego. And then worked at two-year campuses in Texas. Ironically enough, one of them was a D3 school as
Mhm.
a 2-year with a very successful athletics program.
Mhm.
And then a D1 with a very successful athletics program. And yes, it looks different in a 2-year, but back to that student athlete thing, there is still, it doesn't matter if you're at a D1 or a D2, D3. It doesn't matter if you're at a 2-year or at a 4-year. There are some things that are just always going to be the same. So it was my opportunities being at a 2-year was had different opportunities than I had when I was at UC San Diego and when I was at Oregon.
Yep.
Um, all of them gave me the chance to get to know students that I'm still friends with.
Yeah. I I am still connected with several of my students, not every student, but I have students that I've gone to their weddings. I've,
Yeah.
seen them go on to advanced degrees and whatnot. And, quite a few of them make way more than I do. In fact, one of my former students is now a doctor who thankfully gives me, unofficial advice when needed. So it's always helpful to stay connected. And I think that's why both you and I have remained in the education space as long as we have, because we're passionate about helping students and families, really get this as right as they can and enjoy the experience and look back on this as like, wow, this was amazing. So I'm appreciative of everything that you do, Mya. You're such an incredible resource to students and parents. I will include information about how to get connected to Mya in the show notes for this podcast. So if you have more questions for Mya, please reach out to her or reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect you as well. So thanks for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Chuck, it's been fantastic. I mean, any opportunity to have a conversation with you is a great opportunity. Like, it's a win-win, but also I clearly enjoy talking about what I do because I have a great job. Like, I really have a great job. Like, I mean, how many people get to hang out with college kids for a career? It's a great gig. It's a great gig.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that's all the time that we have for today, but fear not, we will be back next week with more tips and tricks to help you conquer the college application process like a boss. Until then, remember, don't chuck it up.